Today I'm going to work on a tutorial with the drag and drop support to the new NSCollectionView. Here I have created a brand new application to make the process of setting the drag and drop more clear. The drag and drop here will be applied to this latest version of NSCollectionView, which is available since 2015. By dragging and dropping within the collection view, I will show you how to create the animation of moving the item from one position to the other. So as you can see, here is the sample project. I have set up the collection view like the one here with the collection view set up, and it is now flow layout, the default flow layout. Within the view controller, I have set up the data source and delegate methods. Of course, I have linked it up from the collection view in the storyboard. It will be displaying a bunch of string values here. And I have also created this my item as the NSCollectionView item subclass, which will be just showing a label within the view of this collection view item. By running the application, you will see default implementation before doing any drag and drop things, and it is pretty straightforward NSCollectionView implementation at the moment. To start with the drag and drop support, like the other drag and drop in terms of a Xcode application, we will need the pasteboard to initiate the dragging, use the validate job to determine which kind of drag operation we are using, and then the accept drop method for finally accepting the drop operation. To start with, I have here in the build.node method, I need to register the drag type to the collection view. For simplicity, I will just use a string as the drag type here. I can set it through NS pasteboard type string. And then, just like other drag and drop operations, they are supported through the delegate methods. So I will put it within the delegate extension, and then start with the collection view pasteboard writer. There are a couple pasteboard writer method. For instance, as you can see here, they are very similar, these two. The only difference is the use of index path or index. For the index one, it is actually a legacy support. If you look at the documentation of NSCollectionView, it will tell you the say the one we are looking at is pasteboard writer. The use of index path is the current support, and for the index only would be the legacy support. As we are using the new NSCollectionView, of course we want to use the new APIs as well. But it should be working for the legacy support. However, if you have both implemented, of course there will be a conflict, and in general it should run the index path one instead of the other within the legacy part. So back to our project. In terms of the pasteboard here, I will use the one with the index path, and then just like other dragging support, we'll need to return an object implementing this NS pasteboard writing protocol. The one here we can use is the pasteboard item. So I'm going to create this. NS spacebar item object, and then set the string for type that we could use. The type here will be the NS spacebar type string as we registered. And for instance, the string, I could simply return the content of the string in the strings array. You may need a better way to find the identifier of your data source object, but in this case, I would just make it for a demonstration purpose. I could access the string I need using the array syntax with the use of indexPath.item as the key and the index to access the correct value within the strings array. Finally, return this object. Before the collection view is able to support the dragging operation, we need to do something within the collection view in the storyboard. So go to here, choose collection view in the interface builder, and then go to the right side here under attributes inspector. You'll find the selection part. We need to make sure we have checkout selectable here in order for the dragging operation to work. Now we could run the application and see whether dragging is started. By dragging any value here, as you can see, the label, the string, follows my mouse to drag to a different position. Of course, it will work on nothing because we didn't implement the other two methods for the drag and drop operation. So I can go back to wheel controller to implement the second method, which is the validate drop. Again, the difference between these two will be the use of index or index path. In our case, we will choose the one with index path. So it should be this one with the index path available. To simplify the process, I will just return move operation all the time. In your own scenario, you could check the different proposed index path and other behavior to see whether you are supporting the dropping in different ways. Like sometimes you don't want the drop to perform, you could return none as the NS drag operation, or in some cases you are dragging from outside the application to the collection view here. You can use NS drag operation.copy. By adding this method, the collection view now should appear with the proposed index path. So say I drag it here to different places. In this case, it may not show up as our view is quite small, but as you make the window bigger and drag a particular item, you'll see this as the behavior for the move drag operation. It appears on the left because for the flow layout, it actually will flow based on left, right, and then top to bottom. I'm currently setting a really wide item width and not setting the item width the same as the window width. So if I drag the window wider, those items would actually lay out like this. So if I drag it, it can go to different parts of the collection view. So now I'm going to set the third method here, which is to accept the job. Again, I would use the one with index path. Within the accept job method, I would need to do at least two things. One is to change the value in the data source by moving the item to a new position. Secondly, would be displaying the change in terms of the UI part on the collection view. This case, I will be using a move item with animation. So first of all, I will need to know what's the from index path. I could actually track the from index path by creating a variable and storing the dragging index path when the drag section starts. So what I mean here is I could implement a method of dragging session. Dragging session has this will begin at point callback. Of course, I can choose either index or index path again. Let me find the one with index path. So it should be this one. This method will be called when the drag operation just starts. That means a dragging session is created. So I have the index paths here as the index path for the item I'm dragging. As collection view supports multiple selection, this index path could be containing multiple index paths for different items. But right now, as you may see in my storyboard and the collection view, I didn't allow multiple selection. So the value here will always be just one index path within this set. That's okay, but just a point of note. I'm going to create an instance variable here to store this. Say calling it dragging index paths. And then the type here will be the same one as what the method provides to us here. So by monitoring the callback of this method, I will just set the index paths to these instance variables. Dragging session has a start, it has an end as well. The end point would be the good time to reset this instance variable. So I'm going to implement that as well. Dragging session, this one is end at point. I simply just reset the instance variable here. Okay, so back to accept job. Now we have stored the from index path in the dragging index paths here. So I could do a for loop for the from index path in this dragging index paths. Even though it is a set, we could use for loop to get each of the index path within this set. So it is quite handy in Swift. From index path should have only one item that we selected. So first thing here is to change the position of the data source. We have the from index path here, and then we have the to index path here. I'm going to manipulate the strings away, which is the data source, using the remove at index, remove it from in terms of the from index, add from index path dot item, which is the index, and then this will return me the string that I just removed. I could add it back to the new position. Using the index path dot item. Notice that if I remove the item in an early part of the strings array, I need to add the item back with a position -1. In order to check that, I could do a simple checking here with the if the to index path is smaller or equal to the from index path. That's okay. So I could just use the index path item to insert back the content. Otherwise, I should index it to index path dot item -1 like this. After manipulating the data source, here is the time to change it on the UI part. So I could use CollectionView dot move item at index path to do it. Simply move it from the from index path to the to index path like this. I will return true anyway, but you could change it based on your business logic. I can now run the application. Notice that, again, I didn't set up the animation yet. What I do now is if I drag it from one position to the other, it will change the content in terms of the strings array and then change the position of the item. It works by moving forward or moving backward. Just to let you know, I make the item width smaller a little bit so it is easier to drag to and from. Now is the time to add the animation. There are 2 steps to add the animation. First one, we need to go to the storyboard and make sure we have turned on the CALayer for the scroll wheel here. What I could do is to go scroll wheel and then select this, the Wheel Effects Inspector. Make sure I have checked the CALayer here. By default, it is not checked. Secondly, go back to the wheel controller, the class here. I will need to add this .animator to tell the animation engine to perform the operation behind using animation. Actually, there is a third hidden step, which is to set the animation context duration. It is like this. NS animation context dot current context dot duration equal to the value you want, say 0.5. It is in terms of second. We don't need to set it here because by default the duration is set to 0.25 seconds already. So by setting it up with the previous two steps, we should have the animation effect already. Let's run the application and take a look. If I drag from the first position to here, it shows as the animation. It works like this as well. So this section tells you how to do drag and drop. Also, we have implemented this drag and drop using animation with the default settings. I will talk to you more about NSCollectionView in a later stage. Thank you very much. If you have any question, feel free to leave me comments.